to Unraveled Game Thoughts for the second to last edition of my top 100 games for my 2022 list. And I have numbers 20 through 11, and hopefully we'll wrap up the top 100 here in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how it goes. I apologize for the delay in getting this next video out since the last one. We were on vacation for a couple of days and needed to catch up with things and get back into the swing of work and life and all that good stuff before I could get this one recorded. But without further ado, here it goes. Number 20 is a West Kingdom game. If you've been watching this list, then you will have already most likely figured out that this is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. This is my favorite of the West Kingdom games. It's fairly close. I enjoy all the West Kingdom games, and to some degree I sometimes waver between which ones I think I like the most. This one again is by S.J. McDonald and Shem Phillips, and the art is by Mihajo Dmitrovsky. And Viscounts is, I would call it a deck building rondel. There's a lot of resource management involved. You have, the resources you have are inkwells and gold and stone. Stone is going to be used to build your buildings that go around the outside of the rondel, and they will basically boost some of the other actions that you have in the game. Inkwells are used to create manuscripts, which is one of the directions you can go with obtaining points as well as buildings. And gold is used to get your meeples into the center. At the center of the rondel is like a castle. It's got a really unique setup because you lay out these 5 tiles, and then the castle locks the tiles into place, which creates the rondel that your knight is going to move around and allow you to take different actions on the board. But again, getting your meeples into that castle is another way of scoring points. You're probably not going to maximize everything, but you'll either maximize the folks you get into the castle, you'll maximize your manuscripts. Buildings, I kind of feel like everybody wants to work on buildings just a little bit. The other aspect or avenue of points you can take is to purchase, like certain manuscripts should give you bonus for certain types of symbols that you have in your deck at the end of the game. Each turn you're going to have, you start with a hand size of 3, and it can go up to, I think, 5, but definitely 4 at least. And so from your hand of cards each turn, you're going to slide cards that are on your tableau. There's a section for 3 different cards on your player board, and they're going to slide over, and then you're going to put a new card down. Each of those cards has a symbol in the top right corner, or symbols. Sometimes it's more than one. And those symbols will contribute to either you getting folks into the castle, getting manuscripts, building buildings, or potentially taking another action around the edge of the board. It's basically a resource gathering action. Or you can have what's called a wild symbol, which will give you corruption. If you're familiar with paladins or architects, then you kind of understand that corruption is sort of this other aspect of the game. A lot of times if you're moving into a black market or something like that, you get corruption for that. So it's like a way of giving yourself more options, but you have to be a little bit corrupt and under the table to do that. But the deck building aspect of Viscounts is really interesting. You're either building up a decent amount of debts or deeds, and one of the point scoring mechanisms is there's going to be a trigger at the end of the game. It could happen for both, but most games that I've played, it usually happens for one or the other. That either whoever has the most flipped debts or whoever has the most flipped deeds will gain some kind of points. Usually the first and second place player, unless it's a two-player game, in which case I think you just first place is the only person that gets points. But yeah, it is a fascinating game to play that has just some unique array of mechanisms that I haven't quite seen in other games. Although I would love to hear if you know of another game that's very similar to this. I'd love to hear about it. This is the only game I've quite played that's quite like it. The art is vibrant. It's just a lot of fun. Now I've played Viscounts with the expansions. I personally don't own the expansions. I only have the base game. It was fun with the expansions. I liked it, but I don't feel like it's necessary. I have no desire to go out and purchase the expansions. One, because I just don't want to have to deal with the extra. Now I need more space on my shelf to place it, and it adds. In some ways, I feel like it adds too much to the game. It's it's one of those things where if someone brings it out, I will play it and it will be fun. But I really like the base game, and for I don't feel like I've mastered the base game to the point where it really I feel the need for extra to be added. So that's my thought on that. I kind of feel the same way about Paladins. I know there's expansions for that, but I don't feel the need to add them. Architects, I did feel like Artisans was a really good add and helped the base game a bit. But with the other West Kingdom games, it's kind of like, take it or leave it. There are some aspects I like better than others, but the Viscounts, in and of itself, great game. It's my number 20. I could see it shifting here or there, but I probably see this one moving up more over time than down because it is quite enjoyable. But there you go. That is number 20. Number 19 is going to come off as being a little odd on my list because technically this game is not released. However, it was available on Tabletop Simulator, and it may still be. The last time I tried to kind of tinker with it, it wouldn't work for me, so I don't know if it's still readily available. It might be, I don't know, it might be in flux or something like that. But it's about to be coming to folks who kickstarted it. I did not kickstart this game. However, I have a buddy who did, and we are both looking forward to this arriving. And we played the original game together and are looking forward to playing this one together. Might possibly add somebody else into the mix if they can kind of hold up to a set time or something. But and I apologize if you hear a noise. That's my printer is making noise in the background, which probably means that someone, most likely my wife, is printing something from afar. All right, so yeah, number 19. Getting back on track here. Got rabbit trailed. Frosthaven. And this is by Isaac Childress and art by Francesca Berold, David Desmarais, and Alexandre Alachiv. Now I've only played a little bit of the base Frosthaven game on TTS, so I haven't fully explored this game. But I've played Gloomhaven extensively. I've beaten Gloomhaven and am currently playing through the what do you call it? The Diviner piece, Forgotten Circles campaign, and I've been playing a decent amount of it on Steam of late, largely to unlock the personal individual solo quests and play through them. But it's Frosthaven in my mind, and from playing the couple of characters that I played with on TTS probably well over a year ago, maybe more than that. It was like they really improved. I hate to say improved. Gloomhaven is fantastic. So I don't know if improved is the right word, but having played Gloomhaven and starting to explore some of these characters in Frosthaven, I am constantly impressed at what Isaac Childress has done with the character creations and how diverse and how unique each character seems to be. So I'm really looking forward to Frosthaven. I enjoyed playing the little bit I did. There's a lot of tough decision making to be made from one character to the next, and I'm really curious how they develop the city building aspect. How that I know there's an element where you're bringing back resources and you're trying to build up the town of Frosthaven to protect it from creatures that will come in and attack. So it sounds like there's a little bit more dynamic play from scenario to scenario, but I am looking forward to all that. I doubt that this will move down my list any further. If anything, I could see Frosthaven moving up the list, becoming more significant. It's at 19 largely for me because I haven't played the full game, and so I don't have a full experience to know, how I feel about it overall. But from the little bit I've played, I feel very comfortable at 19. While I haven't personally kickstarted this game, I definitely foresee adding it to my collection down the road, and then I would love to have it to do like a 4 or 5 player campaign further on. So that's number 19, Frosthaven. Number 18 is the last Vital Lacerda game on my top 100, and of course art is by Ian O'Toole, as I think most of the Vital Lacerda games are Ian O'Toole art, and that is The Gallerist, released in 2015. I have often wrestled with which Lacerda game I like the best. On Mars was higher on my list, or in front of The Gallerist. I don't know, I forget where it used to rank as far as my top like 20, 30 games. But it is a it is The Gallerist. I ended up deciding that was kind of, at least for this year, I felt it has a nice tight feel to it, and not that On Mars doesn't, but I like the way that the money works in The Gallerist, where you have there's a track on the bottom of the board, and that's kind of your fame and your money, and there's a link between the two, and you can like move your marker backwards to gain a buck here or a buck there, or to gain a little extra fame here or a little extra fame there for one of the artists that you're trying to support. There's only 4 action spaces on the board, and each space you could go to will give you the option of 2 different actions, one of 2 different actions. But there's also, with only 4 spaces, and especially if you're playing with 4 players, there's a lot to the game about, I'm going to try to anticipate where someone else might be wanting to go, so that when they go there, it kicks me out, and then I might get a kick out action, which could be just a very basic executive action, or it could be a full action if I pay the fame cost required, move my marker down to the next level of fame, then I could get a whole action. So there's a way to get more actions out of the game in the time frame, just based on being able to anticipate where folks are going to go and get extra kick out actions. You do have to manage your income and your fame. So, I mean, if you're down on 0, you're not getting any full extra actions. You have to be able to do that, and you want to be able to kind of, not have to move it back too far. It depends on the way that works. Is I have, there's the stars for fame are kind of spread throughout, and the stars for income are spread throughout that track on the bottom. And so each, whenever you're moving back fame, so say I have to go back 4 spaces to utilize a full action. I think it's reputation that you're paying, basically. And if I go back 4 spaces, that's a lot. So I've lost quite a bit of my reputation, and that's in-game points potentially at the end of the game. Toward the end of the game, it's not too hard to get it to move up that track, but it is very costly, and if you end up on 0, then you're going to have no reputation and no room to gain $1 here and there that you might need to purchase I think it's workers typically you need the money for. I don't, because you don't need the money to purchase new artists, but you do need the money to purchase art. And so you have to get art in your gallery in order to either then sell the art, or you might want it in your gallery for one of the end game goals. But the art is beautiful. It's got a very Neapolitan kind of a strawberry, chocolate, vanilla coloring scheme to the whole thing, and it's just a well-designed game. I think it's one of Lacerda's better games, and it's easier to teach than most of the games. Now, there's some subtlety to the game that's harder to teach, but I think just to get somebody into the game and learning how to play is not as challenging up front as some of his other games might be. I've heard that um, Kanban EV is not too hard to teach either, but I haven't played that one, so that's not on my list. Maybe one day when I play it, it will make the list, but for this year, it's not on my list because I have not yet played it. But that's The Gallerist by Vital Lacerda. Number 17 is a game I was introduced, I think, this year. I don't believe I ever played this game before 2022. And this was introduced to me on BGA by a friend. I don't own the game in my collection, but I kind of hope to before the end of the year, or at least early next year. I would like to add this. I think this could be a really good game in our family, at least between Becky and I. And it's a two-player game, and that is Targi by Andreas Steger, with art by Tierra Akitsu and Franz Vollwinkel. And this is my highest rated two-player only game. It was a very pleasant surprise when I played it, and it's a simple design, and you have a board of I believe it's a 3x3 of actions that you can take. It might be 4x3. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you have a guy that, like, basically, I forget what the name of the marker. It's kind of like a person that moves around the board, and he is going to block a space you can go as a worker. But the way it works is you're going to have three workers on your turn, and you're going to get to pick a place around the edge of the board where you're going to place those three workers. The thing is, once you take a space around the edge of the board, the other players cannot take that space. The corner spaces are actually like you're going to have to pay essentially like a tax, or you're going to lose something. Those, whenever the marker that moves around the edge of the board, which is essentially the game timer, whenever it hits one of those corner spaces, you're going to lose something. Now, there's some cards that you can obtain during the game where you could avoid those losses, but you're ultimately trying to you're collecting sets of types of cards or targi that you are getting from the game board. So you're either gathering resources or you're getting a card to put in your tableau, and when you collect certain numbers and certain amounts for your tableau, that will score you points in different ways at the end of the game. It's very simple, but the simplicity of it is part of what makes it so intriguing. And there's a little bit of there's the action blocking. I know there's a way, a couple of times I've played on a space where you can prevent your opponent from getting two actions the next turn. You can make it so they only have one action for a turn. And I think the last game I played, I might have won by like a point, but it was because I had blocked my opponent from an action, I think twice during the game. Had I not done that, they would have easily won by probably more than a couple of points. But I was able to sneak ahead by one because they just couldn't take an extra action. There's ways of reducing your cost for purchasing certain cards. This is a lot of efficiency pieces into the game. It's not much of an engine building, really. You're really just trying to get your different cards to chain together to some degree and build just a little bit of synergy so that you can get more points or get more of the same type of card, or I think you can even score a decent amount of points by having different cards in rows on your tableau. But Targi is a great two-player game. Probably takes about, oh, I don't know, 20 to 40 minutes seems reasonable to play. I think anything that would take longer than that would be just a lot of maybe more AP than is necessary. But the game's not prone to AP. I would say it's fairly light and easy and just fantastically fun. I have this at 17 for now, but I could see it potentially moving up. I'll have to get more plays in. Maybe once I have a physical copy and I've had a chance to play it physically, that will solidify kind of where I rank it. But it's a great game. Learned it this year. Happy to have it in my list. In fact, it's in my top 20. So this is wonderful, and I highly recommend it. It's Targi at number 17. All right, number 16. This is a game I've had in my collection for several years, probably 3-4 years now. Um, it is a co-op game, and it's not the highest rated co-op game I have, but it is a co-op game, and it is a 2012 release, and that is Robinson Crusoe by Johanna Janka and Ignacia Tzwisi. Ignacy T. I cannot pronounce his name. Art is by Tomasz Bentkowski, Matus Bilski, Dominic Meyer, Matus Kopaks, Jerzy Fierden, and Vincent Dutrait. I tend to joke that this is one of the best games to die in. It's very challenging. I think most of the co-ops I've played with others, I have won, but generally I feel like by the skin of our teeth. In fact, the last time I played, I mean, we came down to a card draw, and if we had drawn the wrong card, we probably would have lost, because two of us were down to, I think one of us was down to 1 health and one of us was down to 2 health, or 3 health. And we had the other player end up doing something because he had a little bit more health to spare, but it was very, very close. If we had to take another turn, we would have lost the game. But it is a blast to play. The variability and items that are available each game is fantastic. The base game comes with like 8-9 scenarios. I haven't even played all the scenarios in the game that I have. And the solo is really crunchy and challenging, and I enjoy getting it out. It's very hard. I need to read through the rules again, and I was told by my brother that he said it was easy to beat the solo. He had no problem. He'd beaten it multiple times. So either he is cheating and doesn't realize it, or I'm nerfing myself in some way, because I play with Friday. I think you have to play with Friday, but you don't have to play with the dog. But I always play with the dog because I feel like without playing with both Friday and the dog, it's like it's hard. I've never beaten it on solo, and that's with both of those. So I would love to hear comments from anybody who's played this on solo and beaten it. Particularly if you've beaten it multiple times. In my opinion, I think it's extremely hard. But there might be, it could be there's some, something I'm missing, or maybe I'm just not good at it. That's always possible with me in a game. There's some little something I'm overlooking that's like, oh, it would be super easy if I just did it this way. But I'd love to hear what folks think if you have played Robinson Crusoe. But it is a fantastic game. It's well designed. I enjoy it every time I play it, and it's longer as far as gameplay. I feel like it usually takes us 3-4 hours to play through a game if I'm playing with 3 or 4 players. But I always have a blast every time I play this, and there's just a lot of like tension with what do you do and which, where do we want to put our risk in each game. But yeah, that is my number 16, Robinson Crusoe. Number 15 is another game that is new to my collection this year. I guess it's new to everybody's collection this year. Technically, it's got 2022 as release, although I feel like it's been around since 2021. I think it's because it was on BGA for a while, and I think it was on BGA in 2021. And that's Carnegie by Xavier Jorge and art by Ian O'Toole. Carnegie was a game that when I first saw it, I was like, that looks really pretty. I want to play it. I crunched through it a few times, not really understanding what the heck I was doing the first several times I played it. But I have found that this is it's a very fun game to play. I don't feel like I've really mastered it at all, even though I've played it several times now. Um, I think it's more fun to play on the table in front of me than it is to play on BGA, although it is fun on BGA. I like, this is another one of those games where I just feel like I like to see everything all together, and feels like it makes it a little easier to take it all in when it's all right in front of me. But it's a very beautiful game. It's extremely pretty. It's got like a diversity of mechanism. Well, diversity of mechanisms. It feels like a Vitala starter game in some ways. Um, but I'm trying to think of how to describe the general mechanisms, because it looks kind of like it wants to be a train game, but it's not a train game. You're not building track per se. It's action selection. It's action selection. There's only 4 actions you're choosing from each turn. So it's not terribly hard to teach as games go, but getting under your belt how those mechanisms work together is more challenging, and setting yourself up for end game success is fairly challenging, because among those 4 actions you really are just trying to balance your choices so that you have income on a regular basis and can potentially trigger a high number of in-game goals, whether that is building um, your departments out and getting points, a lot of points that way, or building out the connections of where you build buildings on the board, basically putting not departments, but like you're building either housing or manufacturing or industry or finance onto the board, and you're trying to create links between cities based on where you've built stuff. And there are certain hub cities. There's 4 of them on the map, and if you connect all 4, you have the potential for a larger number of points. But that point value also depends on how much you've built up your income in each of those cities. There's like a track in each of those 4 areas of the board. Not the hub cities. There's a hub city associated with each of the 4 areas, but then there's also a track associated with each of the 4 areas that is some sort of income that you get from that area whenever you're pulling a worker back to your lobby from that area. But the where income comes from each game is a little bit randomized. The the departments that players can choose from to build out their player tableau are randomized. There's a decent amount of randomization from game to game that will make each game very different. And even though the games play in a similar fashion, the nuances that would get you to end up having more points than your opponents will be very nuanced. And a lot of the departments you're only going to have one of, depending on the player count in the game. So it's a pretty fun game, and I have enjoyed it. I don't know how much staying power it'll have at 15. I can't tell if this is the kind of game that I'm going to get to like more and more, or if it's the kind of game that the more I play it, eventually I'll kind of like, okay, this is neat, but it might end up shifting down. I don't see it leaving the top 100. It's just, I could see it moving down. I'm still in a wait and see phase, but for now, it's very engaging, it's very beautiful, and I feel like there's a lot to explore in the game. So that is my number 15. Number 14 is a game that has moved up significantly over the past several months. And really, I think the largest reason for that move is due to the most recent expansion that came out, and that is Arts and Architecture for Tapestry. This is by Jamie Stegmaier and art by Andrew Bosley and Ron Brown. Tapestry still would have been probably on my top 100 even before the Arts and Architecture expansion, but I probably would have had it closer to, it had been around the 50, 60 area of my top 100. In this case, it's moved up dramatically. I always kind of liked the mechanisms of the game, but I feel like it was a little too rigid, or there wasn't. I didn't want a sandbox game, but it wasn't. It felt like strategies were kind of linear. You know, you got your civilization that you were going to use, and that civilization pretty much seemed to drive the direction you would go in the game. With the Arts and Architecture expansion, and you have this whole other, the Arts and Architecture strip, which is like, this is another action you can take. Either you're doing military, you're doing science, you're doing exploration, or you're doing, what is the other one? Chemistry? It's not chemistry, it's something else. But the Arts and Architecture is like a whole different track, and that just opens the game up. It means that every game can be a little different, and the options on that track are very interesting, and I think add a lot of dynamic to the game. So I enjoy playing this game. It's a little bit of a bear to set up. There's a lot of bits and pieces, but I will say that the production quality of Tapestry is like crazy. It's, I mean, the all the little what do you call it, income buildings are very nicely produced. The painted buildings that can go into your capital city are fantastic. You can chain together some actions to get some pretty big turns based on how you manipulate the tracks and, you know, make your choices. This is quite. I found this to be a much more enjoyable game to play. It's nice to play on BGA, although BGA I don't believe has the Arts and Architecture option built in. Hopefully they will add that. But this is just colorful and vibrant art to go along with a much more engaging and compelling gameplay than it used to be, and each of the expansions adds enough to it. I'd definitely say Arts and Architecture is the better of the expansions, but I like the civilizations they added in Plots and Ploys, so I wouldn't say that one should be completely ignored. But if I had to pick between the two, I definitely would go Arts and Architecture over Plots and Ploys. But it's fun, and I like as they keep getting data and kind of figuring out, you know, how to make each civilization starting resources balanced so that, you know, end game everybody kind of comes out equal as far as your ability to win the game. I think that's great, and I'd like to see that continue happening, and hopefully one day they'll put out this is a fully balanced, we've got as much data as we can possibly use, and have that out there. But that is Tapestry at number 14. If you've played Tapestry, and especially if you played Arts and Architecture, I would love to hear what your thoughts are before you played with Arts and Architecture, and then after you've played with Arts and Architecture. If you are just like, I hate this game, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. You can hate the game. But if you particularly felt that, you know, that added enough to the game where it would have bumped it up on your list, that's what I'd kind of like to hear, what your thoughts are on that after that expansion. All right, moving right along to number 13, and I think, let me see, yep, this is my last, technically it's not my last co-op, so I got one more co-op on here. So, but this is my second to last co-op. That is Spirit Island 2017 released by R. Eric Roos, art by a multitude of folks here. Jason Benek, Loic Berger, Loic Bilal, Kate G. Bermilin, Carrie Kareen, Lucas Durham, Rocky Hammer, Sione Kruger, Nolan Nasser, Jorge Ramos, Adam Ricbataro, Moro Ragers, Graham Sternberg, Shane Tyree, and Josh Wright the first. So a lot of artists there. And the art for Spirit Island is fantastic. I love the art for Spirit Island. I think it's really, really well done and very provocative. I enjoy it. This is a challenging, meaty co-op. There's quite the portfolio of strategies to choose from depending on which spirits you use and the combinations of spirits. A lot of creativity and depth there, especially with expansions. I only have the Branch and Claw expansion, so a couple extra spirits added to the base game, but the base game has a lot to it. I would like to play the Jagged, I can't remember, Jagged something. The expansion that has like I think 8 more spirits, but I would love to try that one. That one's on my wish list, but it's probably be a while before I get around to it. I haven't even played the base game as much as I would like to play it, and it usually most games take a while. This one I feel like has a little bit longer teach for new players, and there's a lot of almost finicky rules. I don't know that they're unnecessary though, and I don't feel like they're out of place. It's just it's a little bit to learn when you're first learning how to play the spirits. This is definitely a game, and I've played games where we just had one person who was not very good at making choices as a group and working together with a group, and we lost the game. I mean, and it was like very clear that player's choices made a huge difference in the gameplay, which was an interesting way. It was just interesting as you know, I guess I'd look at it as just like, oh, as we play this game, this is interesting. I noticed that this person is not as much of a team player for a co-op game as I have been used to with co-ops in the past, and that made a huge difference. Like we couldn't overcome, the two of us that were very good at trying to figure out team player stuff could not overcome the fact that we had a third player who was just not as equipped at doing that. So that tells me that the game is fairly well balanced at the player counts. Now I've played 2, 3, and 4 player games. I have a hard time saying what I think is the best. A 4-player game tends to be pretty long, and it's going to be probably 3, 4 hours, probably maybe 5. I don't dislike that per se. I feel like there's a lot more dynamics to the game, especially when you have 4 different spirits, and if you get vastly different spirits that do vastly different things, it can make the game pretty interesting. There's a lot of interconnected playing off each other that can happen because each spirit has such different powers and can move things around and shift the board so much. There are often moments in the game where you feel like, it doesn't feel like we're going to win. There's too many things on the board. The invaders have just spread out too much. And then you can have this big turn that just like, boom, you get to slam the invaders really well. Or you can have games, depending on if you have spirits that work off fear, where you manipulate that fear well enough to start getting those fear cards out, and you start really getting to the invaders through fear rather than through actually defeating them off the board from just using your spirit power. So real interesting, well-designed game in my opinion. A great co-op. Doesn't get played a lot, honestly. I wish it got played more, but I still like it. And it's a game that I don't ever see leaving my collection because it is so fun to get to the table and to try out when the opportunity arises. So that is Spirit Island number 13. Number 12, I have debated. Um, you know, there have been other games that have come out that could potentially have pushed this one up or down. Um, I guess in theory, not games that I've necessarily played, just games that could have potentially taken the place of this game. But if, over time, I think that this base form of the game has stood the test of time. I say that kind of tongue in cheek because it's a 2016 release, so it's not that old. But that's Terraforming Mars by Jacob Fryxelius with art by Isaac Fryxelius. It's just a good game. I love the Tableau building, sort of engine building aspect with the cards. I love the different player or companies you can start with. I do think you need to play it with Prelude. I think Prelude just helps the game move a little bit faster. Probably puts it in that feels less grindy at the beginning and can probably get you like a 2 to 3 hour game rather than end up being like a 4 to 5 hour game, which it can sometimes be if you're just playing base Terraforming Mars with no Prelude. Lots of expansions to this game. I don't know how necessary they are. I've never felt I've thought about getting expansions outside of Prelude, but I have never felt compelled that the game needs expansions. I found it to be enjoyable just by itself, and I like the board. I know that there are those who have played Ares Expedition and they like, you kind of get all the dynamics of the game. You just don't have the big board. I like the board. I find the board in that kind of common area where you're building up these, the oxygen and the temperature and all that. I like that aspect of the game. I think it makes it more fun personally, but I can see where others might enjoy just the card game. I saw that there's Terraforming Mars, the dice game coming out. I I looked at that, but I personally didn't find it compelling. Now, I would like to try it sometime. I haven't actually tried Ares Expedition. I'd like to try that sometime. So my opinion that this one is better than those is just based on what I've seen and physically playing Terraforming Mars. But I think I will like this one better than those, even so. But I would like to try them someday and see what I think. And yeah, that's this. I do not feel. I will say this. I do not feel that Ark Nova killed Terraforming Mars. I've heard comparisons between the two. I think comparisons are a little too loosely based on just the fact that they use a similar symbology iconography. I should probably not say iconography, but the icons, the way they use icons is similar. Outside of that, I think they're just very different games. There's not nearly as much collaborativeness on the main game board in Ark Nova as there is in Terraforming Mars. And the engine building doesn't feel quite the same from, having played both games. So to me, one does not displace the other. I like Terraforming Mars still. There's different reasons I might want to get that to the table than there are for Ark Nova, but they're both good. And yeah, so this is a fantastic 2016 creation. Still a great game. There's a reason it's in the BGG. I don't know. I think it's in the top 10. It's at least in the top 20. There's a reason it's had so much staying power there, and it's just a good solid game. All right, last game in this section is my number 11. I waited so long before I ever played this game. In fact, I've never purchased this game until recently. I don't have it in my collection yet. It's coming. I guess next year. It's not coming this year. It'll be next year. And I'd seen this game. I'd heard good things about it. But man, the art was so bad. And even when somebody brought it over and we played it at our house, I was like, "This is a neat game. I like this game. It's fantastic." I hate this art. So beige, so Euro-y. I guess. I don't know if that's fair anymore because there's a lot of Euro games that are gorgeous, and this one just isn't. It's Castles of Burgundy. Um, this is a fantastic game. In fact, I would not be shocked if next year, when I do this list, if it's in the top 10. It would not shock me. Um, I've played it several times on BGA now, and it's one that I constantly like to come back to and play again because I just love the way it all works together. The tile placement and trying to kind of figure out how to make your map work together with what's available on the board and the dice. And it's just a fantastic game by Stefan Feld, art by Julian Delville and Harold Leisk. And I there were times that I thought about getting this game because I knew I liked it after I had played it. Somebody brought it over and I was like, this is a great game. I'd love to own this game. But man, that maroon box, I was just like, I can't. I just know it'll sit on the shelf and we're going to have a hard time pulling it off because there are other prettier games that I like to play. And I know I don't always base a game that I play on how pretty it is, but I just know when it comes down between like Castles of Burgundy or this other game that we like close to as much, but it just looks better on the table, we're probably going to go with that one. And Castles has a lot of, with the tiles and all the bits, a little bit of a setup overkeep more so than some other games that are, I feel like, almost equal in how much I like them, but not as much intensity and setup. So, that being said, I backed the special edition that was recently released on GameFound, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Every time they release an update on it, I'm like, that is going to be so fun to get to the table. I think the map's going to look cool when we bid it out. A little bit of a tapestry feel to it, where it's just going to look cool. So I am looking forward to hopefully next year getting to play this get a little bit more. I'm hoping that the box is designed in such a way that it's pretty easy to set up. I'm curious about the expansions that will eventually come with the game. I don't know much about those. I haven't really looked into them or read the rules on them. So I'll just have to see what I think of that. But I will look forward to playing even the base game of Castles of Burgundy when that is when I get it on my shelf. So that is my number 11, and that will bring a close to this section of my top 100. Love to hear your thoughts. We'll have one more video, hopefully within the next week or so. What games do you like? What maybe surprises you if it's this high on the list? Or what games do you feel like, I can't believe I haven't seen this game yet? Now that we're in this section, maybe take a stab at what do you think is going to be in the top 10 for kicks and giggles. I'm not going to give it away until the next video, but it would be fun just to see what folks might guess. So again, I will come back to the Robinson Crusoe, and if you have tips and tricks for that game in particular, I'd love to hear them. I am not. I'm just very intrigued. It still comes back to me having someone say that they have beaten the solo multiple times makes me wonder, did I do something wrong? Because I have had a hard time beating that, and I've played it probably 20 to 30 times and never won a single solo game. So my impression from what I've seen from other folks is that it is pretty hard. To my knowledge, I'm not making any errors in how I play the game, but perhaps there is something critical that I'm missing. So that is the end of this one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you care to do so. And if you're interested, feel free to visit my Patreon page. It's not the most exciting. I'm still working on building up some patron-only content, but it's just a work in progress. This is just something I do as a hobby on the side. I don't have anybody sponsoring these videos or anything, so it's kind of nice in one way to say whatever I want. I don't have to be overly positive, but it's fun. So yeah, until next time, have a great afternoon.